Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're going to be planetary researchers out in outer space, and one of us unknowingly has been infected by an alien entity. And we're trying to get away and escape off this place. This is a card game for 3 to 5 players. It takes about 15 minutes to play. Today we're going to do a rules school, so I'm just going to give you a brief 1-minute overview. Then I'm going to teach you how to set up and play the game rule for rule. Let's get started. In Alien Entity, each of you is going to have a secret identity for the whole entire game. Most of you will be humans, but one of you will be an alien. The alien will be trying to score points by infecting other humans, but once those humans are infected, they're also now trying to help the alien out. The humans are trying to figure out who the alien is and then eliminate them with some different weapons. Or they'll be trying to end the round and get lots of points by creating a satellite uplink using the data chip, the power supply, and the satellite dish all together. And this will be done by drawing cards, and then either playing a card or passing some secretly to other players. To set up, you'll first go through the draw deck and you will find the single Satchel Charge, Flamethrower, and Secret Document card. You will actually take these out of the deck and out of the game. This is only used for advanced games. Each player will then draw 2 cards off this draw deck and keep them in their hands but secret from other players. If you draw a card that says Infection, you will shuffle this back into the deck and redraw another card so that everyone has 2 cards that are not Infection. We'll learn what Infections do later. Next, we will take out and get ready the identity cards. So here we'll take out the alien first, and then we'll begin to add human cards up to the point where the amount of humans plus alien card is how many players there are. So if there was a 3-player game, it would look like this. If it was a 4-player game, you would add yet another human. Any cards from the identity cards that are not used will be taken out of the game. You'll take all these cards and you will shuffle them up and you'll deal 1 to everybody. Notice that the backs of these cards look slightly different. They don't have all the extra orange here on here so you can find them very quickly. Now when that identity card is passed to you, you keep it secret from everyone else. You can look at it, but then don't let anybody see it and keep it secret in front of you. Now the object of the game is to be the first to have 7 points. This is going to be played over multiple rounds, which are known as encounters. Each encounter, one of the players will be the alien, the rest of the players will be the humans, and you're trying to get points depending on what side you're on. If you're on the alien side, you're trying to infect other players. Once you're infected, you're also then trying to infect the other players. If they're humans, you're trying to kill the aliens. You'll get certain points for doing those things, and at the end of each round or encounter, you then reset and start the whole thing over again. Now you can randomly assign who the start player is, or if you've already played an encounter, you can make the player who is the alien of that counter be the first player. Each player's turn goes through these phases. You're going to draw 2 cards from this deck. You're then going to play or pass cards, and then you're going to discard down to 2 cards if necessary. Let's talk about each of these. Now when you're drawing 2 cards, it's very simple. Here is a face down draw deck in the middle of the table. You will draw 2 of these cards in your hand, and you're never showing anybody these cards. These cards will be in your hand and only you will be able to see them. Then you can decide to either play or pass cards. If you play a card, you can only play 1. When you play equipment cards, they're always played face up. Usually they're in front of yourself, but sometimes they'll be played on other people. But you're only playing 1 card. If you have a card here that you've just played, this card will do an ability that we'll go over later. And then what happens is this card will stay here until it's your turn again. Now when it comes around to your turn next time, you must discard any equipment card in front of you from a previous turn. You might not be playing a card, but in this case, let's say we are. So essentially you're only going to have 1 card in front of you at a time for most of the game. There are some exceptions I'll go over later. Now it's important to note that when you discard these cards, they're always discarded face down. So if this was the draw deck, maybe off to the side you can place a discard deck, but just remember that is going to be face down. Now if you did not want to play your single card, instead you can decide to pass cards. You have cards in your hand. You can pass as many of these as you want as long as you have 1 card left at the end of your turn. You can pass any cards to any player and they're always passed face down to the other player. Now you can pass any card except if you're a human, you can never pass the infection card. This can only be passed usable by an alien. After you've decided to either play your single card or pass cards, you then will discard. Now, let's say I had 3 cards left. You always have to discard down to no more than 2 cards. So I would look at these, I would decide which one to discard. Remember, discarding is always face down, and I have at least no more than 2 cards here. Now, when discarding, if during the beginning of your turn, when you drew cards off the top of the deck, If one of them was an infection card, during the discard phase, you would need to discard this again face down. Now that's only if you've picked them up off of the draw deck, not if an alien passed them to you. If they did pass it to you, you'd have to keep it until a card specifically says you can remove it, which I'll go over later. After you've discarded, that says it's the end of your turn. If you are not discarding because you still have no more than 2 cards, you can just say that it's the end of your turn. The next player clockwise will take their turn. Now, let's go over the different cards. Infection. These are only usable by the alien, and essentially they pass this to a human, and that player is infected. That infected player keeps it secret that they're infected, but essentially they're on the alien's team now, and they're going to try to help the alien infect other humans. Now, once a human is infected, they're going to try to work with the alien in order to score points for that encounter. Now, the infected humans can't score any points by killing the alien or by creating a satellite uplink, which we'll go over later. Also, if you're infected and you draw any infection cards, you cannot pass those back to the alien player. Some cards help with communication, so if you passed this card to someone, it says, hey, I know the alien's identity, watch me, the next card I pass will be to the alien. This is a way to try to communicate with each other, but the alien might be passing these to mess with people. There's also other communication cards like team up with me, pass this card back on the next turn so I know that we're allies. And another one like, hey, I'm trying to build the satellite uplink array. Give me some parts. Let's talk about building that. Now, building that satellite link is how the humans win an encounter. And how that happens is any one human has the satellite dish, the data chip, and the power supply out. Now, keep in mind that on your turn, you're only playing one possible card face up in front of you, and most of the time, all the cards get discarded once it comes back to you. These are the only 3 cards that break that rule and stay in front of you when it's your turn, because you need to get all 3 of them in order to win the encounter as a human. And if this happens, then all humans will get 2 points. Now, if by accident or by other means, an alien or an infected person creates this, then still the human players win the encounter, and all living humans here will get 2 points for that encounter. And you're trying to get 7 total points in the entire game. And also note that any one player can never play more than one of each of these cards. So for example, you couldn't have 2 satellite dishes or more, or any of the same ones. Now let's go over some of these other cards. The Nano Suit. Now again, you're playing these face up, sometimes on yourself, sometimes on other people. You could put this in front of somebody else, for example, and until that player ends up taking another turn, this card will stay in front of them. And for that round, the player cannot be shot or infected this round. So if this is in front of you, and an infection card comes your way, essentially, it should basically be discarded because you have the Nano Suit. Again, all these cards, other than the ones we just talked about, which were the satellite uplink cards, will get discarded when it's your turn again. The next one is Biogel. It works similar to the Nano Suit that we just talked about, except it just doesn't allow you to be infected, but you could still be shot, unlike the Nano Suit, which protects you from both of those. Same thing, if you get past an infection card with this in front of you, you discard it immediately. The Sabotage Kit allows you to steal a piece of equipment in play and play it for yourself in front of you. Now the gun and ammo work sort of together. This basically says, hey, it's enabled by all, but you need ammo, and here's ammo required to fire the gun. So if you have both of these, essentially you pick a player to eliminate. If the player's an alien, you get +2 points, and it's the end of the encounter. If you kill an infected, it's +1 point, but if you kill a human, it's -3 points. But someone else might have played the Sentry Turret, which basically means no one else can play a gun while that card is out there. Now, body armor will protect you from being shot for an entire round because that card will still be in front of you. The blood test kit can be used on somebody else or on yourself. And when that happens, the player that gets this card should reveal all their cards and declare whether or not they're human, infected, or an alien. The DNA Modification Shot essentially forces anyone that you give this to secretly discard one of their infection cards when it's their turn and they're in the discard phase. And this essentially is doing it to an infected human. It doesn't do anything on a human that's not infected, and it doesn't do anything to an alien. But if there's an infected player, they would basically discard one infected face down the discard pile during the discard section of their turn. So turns continue to go clockwise as the way I mentioned until one of the few things happen. Number one, as I mentioned earlier, if a human gets the data chip, the satellite dish, and the power supply, that's basically the satellite uplink, essentially this encounter would end, and all the living humans would get 2 points. Again, you're trying to get to 7. Another way the encounter can end is if the alien infects all the other players. Let's say it's a 4-player game, 3 players were humans, and let's say they just infected the last human. The alien would then stop the game and say, well, it's over, I've infected all of you. The alien would get 1 point for every player they infected, in this case 3 points. All the humans that got infected except for the last player would get 1 point. So these 2 players would have gotten 1 point for being infected. The last player that was infected gets nothing. And as mentioned earlier, that it can end if somebody kills the alien. Essentially that player would get 2 points and the encounter ends. Of course, if someone had killed other people, you would be tracking those points as well during it. So when the encounter ends, you can add up however many or subtract however many points you actually got. And remember, each encounter you're getting points by either creating a satellite uplink if you're a human, or infecting certain humans if you're an alien, or killing, and sometimes you'll actually get minus points for killing. At the end of that round, you count up all your points. If anybody's at 7 points, that player wins. If no one's at 7, you start over a new encounter. Here's some additional rules to keep in mind. If the draw deck ever runs out, you can then shuffle up the discard pile and create a new draw pile. You can never use the gun to shoot yourself. Don't forget, if you're already infected and during the draw phase you draw an infection card, this card will be discarded like normal face down during the discard portion of your turn. Also, table talk can happen and there's no constraints as to what you can or cannot say. Now let's talk about the advanced rules. There were some cards we took out during the original setup. One of those was the Flamethrower. If you're going to use this, you will take 1 gun and 1 ammo card and you will remove them from the game to balance this out, and then you can add in the Flamethrower. The Flamethrower can be used by anybody, and essentially you can eliminate any of the players and nothing can defend against it. The alien, if you kill the alien, you get plus 2 points and it ends the encounter. If you kill an infected, it's 1 point. If you kill a human, it is minus 3 points. If you use the Satchel Charge, it can be used by anybody. You can destroy any piece of equipment played and then play another card. Now the secret document gives you 1 point at the end of the game if you're an uninfected human, but you do not receive any negative points for killing a human if you have this secret document in your hand at the end of the game. However, if you kill a human, you must reveal the secret document and put it into play, and then it's kept there for the end of the game. However, the secret document can be stolen or destroyed. Well, I hope that helped you dive right into the game without having to read the rulebook. Now, if you have any other questions, go ahead and leave them as comments in this video, and we'll do the best we can to answer them.